Vikings, let's win this game.
Vikings fans, things are heating up in Minnesota. A new reinforcement just arrived with serious buzz, Kyler Murray, and the competition inside the offense is already starting to heat up. And there is more coming. Trade talks involving a major name from the defense. In the middle of all that, the front office also made a tough decision involving a veteran highly respected in the locker room. And hold on to this one. The last story in this sequence reveals why the Vikings fought to keep a certain player on the roster. Let's get started. Sometimes a single word says everything. That is exactly what happened when Vikings fans started realizing that something big was unfolding at the most important position on offense. The news broke. The official announcement followed. Soon after, a reaction appeared on social media that many people in Minnesota had been waiting to see. Just one word. Short, direct, SKOL. And yes, the person who wrote that was Kyler Murray. The veteran quarterback has just arrived in Minnesota after a long run in Arizona. The way he showed up immediately sent a clear signal. He understands exactly where he is now. The message was simple, but anyone who lives and breathes Vikings football knows it is not just a word. It is a statement. It is like saying, I am here, and I am already part of the culture. Kyler signed a one-year contract with Minnesota, and there is an interesting detail that many around the NFL have been discussing behind the scenes. The amount the Vikings will pay is relatively small, something close to $1.3 million. Most of the guaranteed money still tied to his contract remains the responsibility of the Cardinals. In other words, Minnesota brought in a quarterback with a serious resume at almost no financial risk. And that resume is real. We are talking about a former #1 overall draft pick, a player who has already made the Pro Bowl 2 times. In 87 career games, he has thrown for more than 20,000 yards. That includes more than 120 touchdown passes. And then there is the element that has always scared defenses, his mobility. Kyler can run a lot. He already has more than 3,000 rushing yards in his career. Now imagine that inside Kevin O'Connell's offense. To be completely straight here, a lot of people are trying to figure out exactly what the plan is, because the roster also includes J.J. McCarthy. He is the first-round pick the Vikings want to develop as the future of the franchise. And when you place an experienced veteran in the same quarterback room, the entire conversation changes tone. This is something fans talk about all the time. The NFL today has very little patience with young quarterbacks. If they do not explode immediately, the pressure comes fast. But at the same time, having a veteran like Kyler Murray inside the building can completely change the environment. And here's another important point. This was not a last-minute move. The Vikings targeted him early in free agency. That shows his name had been on the front office radar from the very beginning. It was not improvisation. Another key factor is timing. Because he arrived early in the offseason, Murray will be part of the full offensive installation. Organized team activities, training sessions, everything. That gives the coaching staff real time to evaluate how far he can go in this offense. The truth is, this situation can move in 2 directions. Either Kyler becomes a strong insurance option on the roster, or the battle for the quarterback job becomes much more serious than many people expected. And if you think this move already shakes things up, wait until you see what his arrival might do to the career of a young quarterback who is trying to take control of the position in Minnesota. Let me ask you something in the comments. Do you think Kyler Murray arrives as the starter or just to push the competition? Because the next story in this sequence completely changes the angle of that conversation inside the Vikings. When a front office decides to bring a veteran quarterback into the roster, the first thing that changes is not the depth chart. It is the atmosphere inside the building. Everyone starts looking differently at the most important position on offense. Coaches observe more closely. Teammates pay more attention. And the fan base wearing purple and gold starts debating scenarios. At the center of this conversation is a name many people in Minnesota had been treating as the future of the franchise. That name is J.J. McCarthy. Not long ago, the situation looked simple. McCarthy was the homegrown project, a young quarterback who had a complicated start to his career. First came the knee injury that wiped out almost his entire rookie season. Then more physical setbacks interrupted practice time the following year. In other words, his development was interrupted several times. Anyone who follows the NFL knows how much that matters. Quarterbacks need repetition. They need rhythm. They need game experience. Now a new variable enters the equation: Kyler Murray. His arrival completely changes the quarterback dynamic in Minnesota. Many people are already speculating that the starting job will be decided during organized team activities and training camp. That is part of the game, but being realistic, there is a strong chance Murray opens the season as quarterback #1. And that leads to the question that fans across the Vikings community have been asking. Does this mean the team has given up on McCarthy? The answer is not that simple. To be very honest here, sometimes the best thing that can happen to a young quarterback is not being thrown directly into the fire. Years ago, it was common to see players sit for 1 or 2 seasons while learning. Today, very few teams have that kind of patience. But look at some recent examples around the league. Sam Darnold revived his career after spending time as a backup. Baker Mayfield found stability when he had a chance to reset away from early pressure. Geno Smith eventually became a starter again years after being written off. The NFL moves fast, but quarterback development does not always follow the clock fans expect. Inside the Vikings coaching staff, there is a famous quote from head coach Kevin O'Connell. He once said, "Organizations fail young quarterbacks before young quarterbacks fail organizations." That quote is relevant again right now, because adding an experienced veteran could actually protect McCarthy's development. Instead of carrying the entire weight of the position, he can observe. He can learn the pace of the league. He can study defenses every week without being the one responsible for solving everything on Sunday. There is also another interesting detail. During the season, the backup quarterback usually runs the scout team during practice. That means facing the starting defense all week long. And the defense led by Brian Flores is not exactly easy to handle. If McCarthy begins showing progress against that unit during practice, it could accelerate his growth as a quarterback. It could do so far more than simply surviving real games while still learning. So yes, Kyler Murray's arrival creates competition. It creates pressure, but it can also create time. And time is sometimes exactly what a young quarterback needs. Now hold on. The next story involves serious conversations happening behind the scenes in the league. It could end with an important defensive player packing his bags. While fans were focused on the arrival of a new quarterback and trying to understand what that meant for the offense, another movement was happening far away from the spotlight. Quiet conversations, phone calls between executives, the kind of negotiation that starts small. It can suddenly become a massive NFL trade. The name involved in this situation is not just any player on the roster. We are talking about one of the most important pass rushers on the Vikings defense in recent seasons. And yes, the player at the center of those discussions is Jonathan Greenard. According to several insiders around the league, the Vikings and the Philadelphia Eagles have been engaged in serious talks. Those talks could result in a trade involving the defender. No deal has been finalized yet, but the conversations are ongoing behind the scenes. To understand why this even became a possibility, we need to look at the context. Greenard signed with Minnesota on a 4-year contract worth roughly $76 million. In his first season, he showed exactly why that signing mattered. He recorded 12 sacks. He added 22 quarterback hits and 18 tackles for loss. Strong production, real impact. He even earned a Pro Bowl selection that season. The following year, however, was not as smooth. Injuries began to appear. They limited his time on the field. Greenard missed 5 games after shoulder surgery. Even so, when he played, he continued generating pressure on opposing quarterbacks. He finished with 47 quarterback pressures during the season. That tells us one thing clearly: the talent is still there. But this is where things become complicated. Greenard reportedly requested a raise. He may also have asked for some type of contract adjustment. Whenever that happens, the front office begins evaluating every option, especially when the team is also managing salary cap adjustments. To be very clear here, Minnesota did not necessarily want to move on from him. But when a player requests contract changes and salary cap pressure exists, other teams start calling. That is exactly what happened. The Eagles recently lost some important pass rushers. Because of that, they began showing interest. Reports indicate Philadelphia would even consider negotiating a contract extension with Greenard if a trade happens. Now we reach the strategic point. The Vikings are reportedly seeking a second-round or third-round draft pick in return. The Eagles currently hold exactly that kind of draft capital, so the situation becomes interesting. On one side, Minnesota could ease salary cap pressure. It could also recover draft value. On the other side, Philadelphia wants to reinforce its quarterback pressure. They want to do it after losing key defensive linemen. And here is the question many Vikings fans across the country are asking. Is it worth giving up a productive pass rusher just to adjust the financial structure of the roster? Because losing pressure on the quarterback can completely change the behavior of a defense. But hold that thought for a moment. The next story is not about trades or positional battles. It involves a veteran deeply respected inside the locker room. It also involves a front office decision that surprised a lot of people in Minnesota. Amid all this movement with quarterbacks arriving, possible trades being discussed, and roster adjustments taking shape, there was another decision from the front office that many people almost missed at first. But once the details came out, it became clear that this story says a lot about the type of culture the Vikings want to maintain inside the locker room. Because the player involved here is not just another name on the roster. We are talking about Aaron Jones. A few weeks ago, everything suggested the veteran running back might be leaving Minnesota. The math looked simple. Jones was set to enter the season with a base salary of around $9 million. His salary cap impact was above $14 million. For a team dealing with financial pressure, that looked like the kind of cut that would inevitably happen. The organization even informed the player that he could be released, but something changed along the way. Instead of moving forward with the release, the Vikings reopened conversations with Jones and his representatives. The result was a contract restructuring. It allows the running back to remain on the roster for at least one more season. The new agreement reduced his base salary to approximately $5.5 million. To be completely direct here, that shows the decision was not only financial. According to reports behind the scenes, the coaching staff and team leadership never truly wanted to lose Aaron Jones. He is viewed as a strong locker room presence, a respected teammate, a player who helps maintain the identity of the group, and in a roster going through important changes, that kind of leadership matters a lot. Of course, there is also the discussion about production on the field. Last season, his numbers were lower than previous years. Jones finished with 548 rushing yards. That was his lowest total since his rookie season. But that number needs context. He missed 5 games due to multiple injuries involving his hamstring, hip, and shoulder. On top of that, he split carries with another running back when he was available. So the raw statistic does not tell the full story, because if we look just 1 year earlier, the production was impressive. During the previous season, Aaron Jones played all 17 games. He rushed for 1,138 yards. He also added more than 400 receiving yards. Altogether, he produced more than 1,500 yards from scrimmage. That total ranked him among the 8 most productive players in the entire league that year. In other words, when healthy, he can still deliver. There is also another factor. His style fits very well within Minnesota's offensive system. Jones can run effectively between the tackles. He can also create danger catching short passes out of the backfield. That kind of versatility helps any quarterback, especially when the team is dealing with uncertainty at the position, because right now nobody knows exactly who will start at quarterback in Week 1. It could be Kyler Murray. It could be J.J. McCarthy. Some people are even speculating about other possibilities. But regardless of who lines up under center, having a reliable veteran running back in the backfield helps stabilize the offense. So yes, keeping Aaron Jones may look like a smaller headline compared to other offseason moves, but inside a team trying to balance youth and experience, it makes a lot of sense. Now take a breath. The next story is not about contract restructuring or trade discussions. It involves something much heavier. It is a franchise decision involving one of the most respected names to ever wear purple and gold in Minnesota. Some news stories are difficult for any fan to process. It does not matter how many years you have followed the team. It does not matter how many roster changes you have seen. Some decisions simply carry more weight. This is one of those moments. For more than a decade, there was a player who became almost synonymous with the Vikings defense. A quiet leader, a player who always appeared in the biggest moments, a crucial interception, a perfect read on a play. That presence that gave the entire secondary confidence. That player is Harrison Smith. After 14 seasons wearing purple and gold, the organization made a heavy decision during this offseason. The Vikings chose to release the veteran safety using a post-June 1st designation. When the news broke, many fans across the Vikings community paused for a moment, because we are talking about one of the most respected players in the recent history of the franchise. To understand the move, we have to look at the context. Harrison Smith is now 37 years old. Over his career, he built an impressive resume, multiple Pro Bowl selections, All-Pro honors. For years, he was widely considered one of the smartest safeties in the entire National Football League. His football intelligence has always been remarkable. How many times did we see Smith appear out of nowhere in the middle of a play? Interception, surprise sack, perfectly timed blitz. He was the kind of player who confused quarterbacks. But time eventually reaches everyone in the league. And part of this decision also involves financial factors. His contract included an important trigger approaching soon. A guaranteed value of around $25 million for the 2027 season was about to activate. The Vikings needed to act before that happened. With the post-June 1st designation, the financial impact of his release is spread out. The team will carry about $3 million in dead cap during the 2026 season. It will carry roughly $7.6 million in 2027. That creates a little more flexibility to reorganize the roster. But the financial side is only half the story. There is also the human side. To be very clear, Harrison Smith was not simply discarded. According to reports behind the scenes, the organization spoke with him before making the move. There is openness for a possible return. It depends on what decision he makes about his career. Smith has not yet decided whether he wants to play a 15th NFL season or consider retirement. so the door is not completely closed. Even so, the emotional impact of this news is significant. We are talking about a player who spent his entire career in Minnesota, 14 seasons defending the same shield. That is rare in the modern NFL. For anyone who lives and breathes Vikings football every day, Harrison Smith became part of the identity of the defense for more than a decade. And when a name that big reaches a crossroads like this, the feeling becomes complicated. Because while the team must continue evolving, it is impossible to ignore the history he built wearing those colors. And after everything we have discussed here, a quarterback arrival, a brewing competition, possible trades, and difficult roster decisions, it is clear the Vikings are entering a true transition period. It is one of those moments that can define the direction of the franchise for the next several years. When you put all of these developments together from the past few days, it becomes clear that the Vikings are turning an important page. A new quarterback arriving, a competition heating up, potential trade talks affecting the defense, a veteran staying in the offense, and a farewell that carries weight in franchise history. This is not a quiet offseason. This is a redefinition of identity. Minnesota is clearly trying to balance the future with experienced leadership at the same time. And when a team moves in that direction, it usually means one thing. The upcoming season could shape the next several years of the franchise. Now I want to hear from you. Write in the comments what you think about all these developments. Stay tuned. SKOL Vikings, let's go.